In the quiet Bavarian village of Dernbach, where church bells marked time and neighbors knew every secret, a boy named Adrian Keller was different. While other children played tag in the fields or carved whistles from willow branches, Adrian crouched in the dirt, his hands busy collecting scraps, broken watch gears, pieces of glass, bits of wire the blacksmith had thrown away. The villagers would shake their heads. "Strange boy," they muttered. Even his own father frowned, but Adrian's eyes glowed with a curiosity no one else understood. He wasn't building toys, he was dreaming of machines that could move on their own, things that might one day live. At night, when the village slept, he whispered to himself, "One day, I'll make something the world has never seen." Adrian's father, Johann Keller, was a stern clockmaker. Precision mattered to him: order, discipline, respectability. His son's endless tinkering with scraps seemed foolish, even shameful. But Adrian's mother, Clara, saw differently. She noticed the way her boy's eyes lit up whenever he sketched strange diagrams by candlelight. She would quietly slip him paper from her sewing supplies, pretending not to notice when ink stains ruined his sleeves. On his 12th birthday, when the family could barely afford bread, Clara handed him a small wrapped parcel. Inside was a leather-bound journal, worn but sturdy. "Every great mind," she whispered, "needs a place to keep its dreams." Adrian hugged it to his chest, his eyes watering. For the first time, he felt someone believed in him. By 14, Adrian was devouring books faster than his mother could borrow them from the pastor's library. Natural philosophy, alchemy, anatomy. He wanted to understand everything. But one question haunted him most. Could life itself be created? To Adrian, this wasn't arrogance or blasphemy. It was wonder. If a watchmaker could build a clock, if an inventor could make engines roar, then why couldn't a man craft life itself? Late one night, he scribbled in his journal, "If man can build machines, why not life? What separates spark from soul?" The ink dried on the page, but the question would burn in his heart forever. Curiosity has a price. By 15, Adrian was the village's strange shadow. Children teased him, Mad Keller chasing ghosts, while grown men crossed the street when he passed. The priest warned his parents, "Your boy is dabbling in things man was never meant to know." Even Johann, his father, snapped one evening at dinner. "You waste your hands on foolishness when you could be learning the trade. Do you think gears and wires will feed you?" Adrian swallowed his anger. Inside, though, he was unshaken. Every insult, every cruel laugh only pushed him deeper into his obsession. If they could not see what he saw, then he would show them, someday. Beneath his father's workshop lay a damp cellar, forgotten and filled with dust. Adrian claimed it as his own. He patched the cracks, built shelves, and lined them with jars of chemicals, bits of copper, and sketches pinned to the walls. A small hand-cranked generator became his prized possession. Hours blurred into days as he experimented, trying to spark motion into little constructs of wood and wire. His proudest creations were tiny insects with jointed legs. They never quite worked, but each failure was a lesson. Alone in the cellar, with the soft whir of gears and the sharp scent of chemicals, Adrian felt closest to his dream. When Adrian turned 16, tragedy struck. His mother, Clara, the only one who had ever believed in him, fell gravely ill. Adrian tried everything. He brewed bitter tonics, built a crude electrical coil he hoped might revive her weakening body, and whispered desperate promises by her bedside. But no invention, no knowledge, could hold back death's cold hand. On her final night, she held his trembling hand and whispered, "Promise me, Adrian. Use your gift to bring light, not sorrow." When her eyes closed forever, something inside Adrian broke. But in the ashes of grief, a new fire roared. He would not only honor her words, he would defy death itself. With Clara gone, Johann Keller wasted no time. Believing Adrian's madness had killed his wife, he apprenticed the boy to a wealthy inventor in Munich, hoping hard work would cure him. There, Adrian met Karl Weiss, another apprentice. Karl was everything Adrian was not: charming, confident, admired by all. But behind Karl's smile lurked arrogance. He mocked Adrian's crude machines. "You'll never be remembered," Karl sneered one evening, holding up Adrian's sketches. "You're just a poor village boy chasing fairy tales." The words cut deep, but Adrian clenched his fists, silently vowing, "One day, Karl Weiss will choke on my fairy tale." Not everyone in Munich mocked Adrian. At the bookshop near the workshop, he met Lena Vogel, the bookseller's daughter. She noticed the strange boy who always asked for texts on electricity and anatomy instead of novels. "You read like someone chasing the future," she teased gently. When Adrian admitted his dream, bracing for laughter, Lena only smiled. "You dream differently. That's not madness, that's vision." From that day on, Lena became his quiet supporter, slipping him books professors had long forgotten and offering something rarer still: companionship. By 17, Adrian's secret experiments in the cellar beneath Munich reached a daring peak. He created a lump of tissue-like matter from chemicals, binding it with thin copper wires and soaking it in strange fluids. With trembling hands, he connected it to his generator. Sparks danced. The shape quivered. For a moment, just a moment, it twitched. Adrian gasped, heart pounding. Life. But then it collapsed, still and lifeless. The flicker of hope vanished. Adrian sank to his knees, sobbing. Failure. Yet in his heart, he knew he was closer than ever. Success, even in failure, rarely stays secret. Neighbors began whispering of the boy who tried to make life. Some swore they heard strange noises from the cellar, saw sparks in the night. The church condemned him, warning the city of his godless experiments. His employer distanced himself, embarrassed by the rumors. Even Karl used them to humiliate Adrian further. But through it all, Lena stayed by his side. "They fear what they don't understand," she told him, her voice steady. "But fear has never built the future." Adrian's resolve hardened. If the world called him a madman, then he would prove them all wrong. The year was 1889. Munich was shrouded in storms that summer, thunder rolling like a warning from the heavens. Adrian worked feverishly in his hidden cellar, crafting his most ambitious experiment yet. It wasn't a crude lump this time. It was a delicate, bird-like figure of wires, glass, and tissue-like material, no larger than a sparrow. For months, he had refined its shape, weaving it with care as if it were something sacred. When the storm broke and lightning cracked the sky, Adrian seized the moment. He connected his wires, hands trembling. A surge of energy flowed. The bird jerked, its wings twitched. For one breathtaking instant it fluttered, its glass eyes glimmered. Adrian gasped, tears streaming down his face. "It's alive! It's alive!" he cried, his voice cracking with joy. But as quickly as it had begun, the movement ceased. The sparrow lay still, lifeless once more. In that silence, Adrian both tasted triumph and the cruel sting of defeat. He held the small creation in his hands for hours, staring at it as though it might breathe again. But it didn't. In his journal, Adrian wrote with shaking hands, "To imitate is not to create. I have captured the form, but not the fire. What separates spark from soul remains hidden." The revelation crushed him. For the first time, he questioned if his dream was not brilliance but folly. He wondered if perhaps the villagers had been right all along, that he was chasing shadows never meant for man. And yet, deep inside, he could not let it go. Adrian's fragile hope was shattered not by failure, but by betrayal. Karl Weiss, ever watchful, had discovered his secret cellar and stolen a bundle of Adrian's notes. Weeks later, Karl stood proudly at a gathering of Munich's scientific elite, presenting Adrian's ideas as his own. The audience gasped at Karl's brilliance. Applause thundered through the hall. He was praised as a visionary. Adrian burst into the room, his voice breaking. "Those are my notes, my work." But the crowd only laughed. A poor apprentice challenging a polished prodigy? Absurd. Carl smirked, his victory sealed. That night, Adrian tore through his cellar, raging, screaming, smashing glass and gears. Everything he had worked for had been stolen, and no one believed him. Exhaustion and despair consumed him. Days blurred into nights. He stopped eating. He stopped building. The cellar grew cold and lifeless. Lena found him one evening, slumped over his bench, pale and hollow. She placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. "Adrian, you're killing yourself." "I was a fool," he muttered, voice empty. "I thought I could hold life in my hands. But I was only holding smoke." She knelt beside him, her voice steady but tender. "You wanted to create life, but don't you see? You already have. Not in machines, not in wires, but in people. The veteran you helped with his hand, the child who learned to read with your device. You gave them life again." Her words pierced his despair. Slowly, faintly, a new thought bloomed. Adrian realized that perhaps his mother's dying wish had been right all along. Bring light, not sorrow. Instead of trying to defy nature, he turned his genius toward compassion. He built a mechanical hand for a wounded soldier who wept when he held a mug for the first time in years. He invented a tactile reading device for a blind boy, whose laughter filled the cellar when he read his first story. Whispers in Munich began to change. The mad apprentice was no longer feared but sought after. People spoke of Adrian Keller not as a sorcerer, but as a quiet man whose machines healed. For the first time, Adrian felt peace. Through it all, Lena never left his side. She became his anchor, his light. Together they spent evenings by the Isar River, watching lanterns float across the water. One evening, Lena turned to him and whispered, "You have already created life, Adrian. Every time you give someone hope, you breathe life into them." Her words, simple but profound, filled him with a warmth no invention ever had. Love, he realized, was the truest creation of all. Still, the dream of creation never fully left him. But now it was gentler, no longer defiance against death, but an offering of beauty. He built one last machine for Lena, a small clockwork bird, crafted with exquisite detail. Unlike his old sparrow, this one was not meant to deceive life, but to celebrate it. When Lena wound it, the bird's wings fluttered gracefully, and it released a soft, melodic chirp that echoed like a song of hope. Lena's eyes filled with tears. She pressed the bird to her heart and whispered, "This is life, Adrian. This is enough." Adrian lived the rest of his days humbly. He never became rich or famous. His inventions helped countless lives, but his name was never etched into history. When he passed away in 1914, quietly and without ceremony, his journals and machines were packed into boxes and left in a dusty attic. The world moved on. The name Adrian Keller faded, forgotten. Yet his small creations, prosthetic hands, reading devices, music boxes, continued to touch lives long after he was gone. A century later, in 1989, a young historian named Marta Schneider stumbled upon Adrian's journals in a Bavarian library archive. She opened the faded pages, reading his notes, his sketches, his heartbreak. She was stunned. Here was a man who, in obscurity, had dreamed of life. Not for power, not for glory, but to give hope. His prosthetics, his devices, they were precursors to technologies that shaped the modern world. She closed the journal and whispered in awe, "The forgotten prodigy. He wasn't trying to be God. He was trying to be human." Adrian Keller never succeeded in creating life. His sparrow never truly flew. His dream never reached the heavens. But in his failure, he discovered something greater. That life is not created by sparks or wires, but by the love we give. the hope we inspire, and the kindness we leave behind. Adrian's name may have been forgotten by history, but his legacy lived quietly in every person he touched, in every heart he healed. In the end, he was what he always longed to be, a giver of life in the most human way.